the delve. Once the explorers are ready to depart the outpost, Chief Calvanettes will accompany them to the loading dock. She will show them the battered old Beetle-class terrain rover, which they can use for the mission. With a tired good luck and blessings of the three, she hits the button that opens the doors to the dark vista outside, letting the Mubaran gale hit the docks with force. Getting there, the explorers will travel to the last known location of the prospectors in the old six-wheeled rover. The vehicle has decidedly seen better days, but handles the rocky terrain well enough. It is a 3-hour drive to the site, mostly uneventful. Besides one or two prospecting rovers seen in the distance, the explorers are only accompanied by the whirring sound of the engine and the inky black vastness above. Event the shakes. The constant hum of the rover's engine is a reassuring presence as the vehicle navigates the asteroid's terrain. Suddenly, a subtle but distinct vibration, unlike the usual movement over rocky ground, is felt through the seats and floor, hinting at something amiss beneath. And then, the faint sound of cracking can be heard from below. As the explorers traverse the rocky plain, they feel the ground beneath the rover slightly tilting to the right, and then suddenly there are visible cracks spreading alarmingly fast around the rover. The ground is giving way, and a crevice is opening. The driver will have to succeed, with an agility driver, roll to avoid crashing down in the crevice. If the roll fails, all explorers are hit by an attack with strength 4 and base damage 1, and the rover is stuck at a steep angle pointing downwards. The explorers will have to walk the rest of the way. This trek will take 2 hours and will claim 2 points of supply as they lug all their equipment with them. The fissure, the last known location of the prospector crew. A colossal fissure slices through the asteroid's surface, a jagged scar that plunges into the unknown depths below. Its edges are ragged, testament to the violent forces that tore the ground asunder. Somewhere down there, in the abyss, is the answer to the prospector's fates. Preparing the delve. In this adventure, the equipment and roles of the explorers have been set, and the delve itself is linear. In further adventures, a big part is planning for the delve, choosing what equipment to bring, how many points of supply, which route to take, and who will take which roles. This will be the player's first delve. However, that is not the case for the explorers. Explain to the players the basics of the delve. First, the scout performs a physical scan of the fissure, and then sends the bird to look for Blight. The delver leads the way and rolls for progress. The crew will descend a number of markers of depth depending on the role. If there is any Blight in the area, all explorers will be affected by the Blight and roll for the Blight protection provided by their delving suits. As soon as the crew has descended, the GM will roll for an event to occur. This roll is modified by the total depth delved and will result in something happening, as well as what role in the crew is affected by it. Finally, a number of supply points equal to the depth delved will be used up. Repeat this process until the explorers reach either the auxiliary chamber or the antechamber. The bird and scanning. The explorer's bird is perhaps their most precious asset. It is not known exactly how, but the bird is connected to the Blight and seems to be created to discover and warn about its presence. When beginning a delve, the crew scans with a deep scanner to ascertain the exact physical layout of the delve. But before starting the descent, the crew usually sends the bird forward through the ruin. When the bird returns, the crew uses a peculiar machine called a Garuda device to link the bird's impressions, including Blight levels in the ruin, with their scanner. GM. Once the scan has been performed and the bird returned, give the scout handout 4 Scanner Map. Be sure to note the Blight levels in the fissure, as this will affect the crew during the delve. Supplies. Supplies are perhaps the most important asset for any delver crew. It is vital that the group have enough supply points to reach their destination and get out again. For that reason, the very least amount of supply a group should carry is equal to the shortest depth to the destination multiplied by 2. However, unexpected things tend to happen on a delve, so it is recommended that explorers pack extra. Many a delver crew has been lost in the depths because their supplies ran out. Setting the mood. The delve is divided into 2 parts. The first is the fissure and the natural chasm leading downwards. Everything here is cramped and claustrophobic, with loose rocks and sharp, craggy rocks making the delve difficult. The second part is the builder structure. Here the tunnels are wide with smooth surfaces. Still, the feeling is unsettling in its otherworldliness. It is hard to shake the feeling that the structure was not built for humans. In this part, emphasize the strangeness of the blight-infected air, the unsettling size of everything, and the mind-boggling age of the structure. The event table will provide challenges for the explorers. Use this as a basis, but do not forget to let the atmosphere and roleplay set the tone. Build on the events, switch them up if you feel like it, or develop them further. The side tunnel. A perfectly circular tunnel opens to the left. The opening is partly obstructed by rubble from a landslide. It is a tight squeeze to get through. Explorers with medium or heavy delving suits won't fit, and all others must pass an agility roll to pass. The burrower could widen the opening sufficiently by digging or using explosives, but it will take 1 stretch, consuming 1 supply. The tunnel forward has the same smooth feeling as the others, although there are areas with microfractures, like collars, around the circumference of the tunnel. Passing through one of the fractured areas will lead to a rockfall, with 6 base dice, 1 damage, if the explorer leading the way fails a perception roll. The auxiliary chamber. A sphere-shaped chamber partly filled with rocks and detritus from the now dead prospector. Where the walls are visible through the fractures, dark geometric patterns can be seen that seem to move in the corner of the eye. A lone figure covered by debris and rocks, frozen with a breathing mask clutched to its face. Eyes glazed over, the corpse seems to be looking right at the explorer entering the chamber. Search. If the explorers search the chamber, they lose 1 point of supply and discover the corpse of Rov Anchor. The figure is the prospector Rov Anchor. A close examination with Logic Doctor shows that his leg is broken and dressed, probably by himself. The wound is crusted with small black crystals, almost as if barnacles were beginning to form, a residue from the Blight crawlers. In the debris, the explorers can find rations, batteries, and a still full oxy canister, amounting to 3 points of supply. The patterns on the wall are different from the tunnels and seem to have some sort of function, although they are dark and inert. What happened to the prospectors? When the prospectors reached the structure, they were exhausted by the climb and had already been exposed to Blight, even though the Blight level was less intense at that moment. They entered the antechamber, tried unsuccessfully to hack their way through the door, and decided instead to explore the other chambers. Finding the key mechanism, they managed to open the door, but by this time they were heavily blight-ridden and weak. These were their fates. Jahamala Kaif, overwhelmed by Blight and the visions of the Builder City in the memory chamber, lost herself to the vast vision and continues to try and express it as she can. She is alive, but will require extensive medical care to recover. Nev Ringa found the sphere next to the pedestal and approached to retrieve it. He was thrown up in the air by its gravity wave and killed by the fall. Birsa Levada managed to approach the sphere while dormant, only to be overcome by Blight and collapse against the pedestal. She is barely alive. Rez Artreb and Rov Anchor escaped the structure, but not before getting attacked by Blight crawlers in the antechamber, which led to Anchor being wounded. Realizing that he would not be able to make the climb out, Anchor retreated into the auxiliary chamber, where he eventually succumbed to his wounds. Resoltribe managed to escape to the surface, as described in the background. In the final part of the adventure, the explorers enter the structure where the prospectors disappeared. They will have to explore the ruin, find a way into its center, and get out while they still have time, all while keeping an eye on Blight, supply, and living dangers. In this Quickstart, Blight levels are handled with Blight surges in the structure, noted in each room description. GM. Remind the players that their explorers may perform another and more detailed scan of the structure when they have reached to this point. The bird can also be coaxed to fly through the structure and scan for Blight. As it returns, it will give them the Blight levels through the Garuda device. See handout 5, Structure Map. Supply in the ruin. Remember that the players need to keep track of their supply points during the exploration of the ruin. Exploring an area, 1 point of supply. Any tasks that require physical exertion, 1 point of supply. Participating in combat, 1 point of supply. 1. The antechamber. A chamber opens up from the smooth corridors of the ruin. The structured walls slant upwards to a high ceiling hidden in the shadows above. Long grooves line the northern part of the room, rising to the roof, forming a flower-like intersection. The grooves seem to move as the shadows from the lanterns generate weird interference. The furrows make the room resemble the inside of a strange machine. Cerulean blue dust flakes float in the room, reflecting the light of the explorers' lamps. The grooves dissolve and give way around the engraved patterns covering the southern wall. A successful logic archaeology roll tells the explorers that they seem to indicate that this ruin dates from the 12th of the era. The engravings form a rectangular door at the southern wall. At its center, their motifs change into a circular glyph. A successful logic, glyph scholar, roll reveals the symbol to mean machine or mechanism. Search. If the explorers search the chamber, they lose 1 point of supply and discover marks on the door, as if someone has tried to force their way through with a pickaxe or similar tools. A prospector's lantern can be found close to the western exit. If turned on, it flickers and then dies. A patch of dark, iridescent frost is found on the wall closest to the eastern exit. A successful roll for insight tells the explorers that this indicates heavy blight. 2 D6 shards. Artifacts and shards. Exploring ruins is not without its rewards. In fact, one of the explorers' major sources of income is the reward for bringing back valuable loot to Ship City. Artifacts are highly sought after relics from the Builder civilization. The Explorers Guild pays a finder's fee for all artifacts handed over to the Guild. In this adventure, there are 2 artifacts, 1 major and 1 lesser: the fractured sphere in the cathedral vault and the memory disk encased in Blight found in the Eastern Passage. Shards are the collective term for the metal and ceramic fragments found in and around Builder ruins. No one knows their original purpose, but theories range from labeling them as some form of money to art or other stranger devices. All shards found belong to the explorers and can be sold to collectors or the Machinists Guild on Ship City. 1 shard is worth 50, 200 Vals dirham depending on its quality. 4 shards equal 1 point of encumbrance. Event: Blight crawlers. The explorers are not alone in the ruin. Blight crawlers, strange creatures that thrive on blight, have made a nest here. The dark frost patches that can be found around the ruin are traces of the crawlers. They usually keep to the roof or the walls and will pounce on the explorers whenever you see fit. Alternatively, you can roll a die for each area the explorers enter. On a 1, the crawlers attack. Add 1 die to the roll for every chamber they have explored. Blight crawlers. These black fist-sized, iridescent beetle-like creatures can sometimes be found crawling over barnacles on ships or the blight ice in ruin fields. They leave a trail of blight dust and flakes, and sometimes conglomerates of new shiny barnacles. Singly, they are but a nuisance to the explorer. However, in numbers, they can be quite dangerous, as they are drawn to non-infested areas and living organisms. In mere minutes, they can cover a whole crew in a thick, suffocating layer of ice and barnacles. A good flamer is the only thing that can keep them at bay. GM. Creature attacks are described with a certain amount of base dice to roll and a number of damage, despair, and blight the first 6 deals. Just like weapons, each subsequent increases the effect by 1. 2. The Western Passage. A curved corridor a few paces across. Dust particles hover, refracting the dim light around. The silence amplifies isolation, each footstep echoing through the tomb like ruin. Purplish-blue dust flakes are floating upwards. They slowly gravitate towards the closest explorer. A rhythmic screeching sound, vague but distinct, can be heard from the south, like nails on a chalkboard or stone on stone. Weak, pulsating light coming from the far end of the passage. 3. The Memory Chamber. A chamber with slanting walls similar to previous rooms. The walls covered in engraved geometric patterns that sparkle and shimmer weakly. A solitary suited figure seated on the floor facing the wall casts long, distorted shadows against strange patterns written on cold stone walls. The screeching scrape of rock on rock echoes eerily as the figure carves at the wall with intense focus. Search. If the explorers search the chamber, they lose 1 point of supply and discover the prospector. This is Jahamala Kaif, consumed by blight and visions of the builder's ancient city. She is drawing something on the wall. A closer look reveals that it seems to depict some sort of vertical structures on a disc with 3 oval-shaped structures beneath it. Kaif is unaware of her surroundings, and a successful empathy roll is needed to get her to accompany the explorers. Even so, one of the explorers will have to support her, as she is very weak. If Kaif is added to the group, 1 extra point of supply is used up immediately. The memory pattern, a successful logic, archaeology roll tells the explorers that these patterns are similar to the ones found in the Cave of Sira in the Auriga system in 185. At that site, the patterns seem to have something to do with visions. Touching the faintly pulsating pattern will immediately trigger a stark vision. Give that player handout Salary 6, the vision, and let her roll for insight. Failure leads to losing 1 hope. D6 shards, faintly glowing with the patterns in the chamber. The glow will disappear when they are removed from the chamber. Handout, not a 6, the vision. You see clouds. Clouds everywhere. Grey-black and heavy when you look down. When you look up, you see them shimmering in a golden haze. Above, a yellow gas giant dominates the sky. Suddenly you see something huge appear in the cloud bank in front of you. Something slowly rising out of the fog. Glimmering towers and vast buildings spread on a large structure supported by 3 oddly shaped mountains floating in the clouds. A city you are. On a city surrounded by billowing clouds. You are surrounded by towers reaching for the sky. But something is wrong. The ground trembles beneath you, and the city tilts to the side. You see the abyss looming below and feel it closing in. The mountains below have given way, save for one, still floating while you pass it. The city plunges downwards, taking you along with it. 4. The Southern Passage, a curved corridor a few paces across. Curiously, there are no dust particles in this passage. There is nothing here. 5. The Key Chamber, a chamber with angled walls haphazardly covered in sprawling purple vines, black leaves, and small iridescent buds ready to open. The vines seem to writhe in an unseen breeze. A faintly glowing symbol can be seen behind the vines on the northern wall. The vines, twisting, changes direction, as if reacting to something. Search. If the explorers search the chamber, they lose 1 point of supply and discover the vines are reacting to the explorers' lanterns. The vines will try to encase the source of light that includes any explorer carrying it. They will ensnare the boots first, and then work upwards towards the light. If trapped, a successful strength roll must be made. Failure means that the explorer is stuck and takes 1 blight. If the explorers turn off the lights or use a flamer on the vines, they will stop moving and pull back. A logic roll tells the explorer that the vines are a manifestation of the blight. The key mechanism. A circular plate embedded in the wall showing the same symbol as the door in the antechamber. If pressed, the explorers feel a vague rumble in the ground. The door to the cathedral vault is now open. Dark frost surrounding the eastern exit. 3d6 shards. 6. The Eastern Passage, a curved corridor a few paces across. This passage is covered in dark, glimmering frost. Search. If the explorers search the passage, they lose 1 point of supply and discover the ceiling is crawling with blight crawlers. They attack immediately. A frost-encased disc, it seems to be of builder origin. If touched, the explorer is subjected to a blight surge with 8 base dice, Blight 1. After the surge, it becomes inert. The disc takes up 1 point of encumbrance and is considered an artifact. 7. The Cathedral Vault. In the shadows of the asteroid's heart is an immense chamber stretching upward, its roof soaring more than 100 meters above. The smooth, seamless walls curve gently to meet the distant ceiling. The walls are covered by an otherworldly mosaic, showing patterns that subtly shift depending on where light falls. A raised dais in the middle of the vault is reached by sloped platforms. There is a pedestal in the center of the dais. Blight Surge. As soon as the explorers enter the cathedral vault, they are subjected to a blight surge with 8 base dice and Blight 1. Scintillating dust flakes swirl high in the air above the central dais. They rotate as if in a twisting cone. Sprawled on the floor is a body in a miner's suit, 1 leg twisted at an unnatural angle. A slumped figure in a prospector's suit is seated against the pedestal. It is not moving, nor reacting to the explorer's actions. A sphere the size of a head lies on the stone floor, half a dozen paces from the pedestal. It is glowing and pulsating with changing patterns. If anyone comes within 5 meters of the sphere, they are hit with a tremendous unseen force and thrown across the room, taking 8th base dice. Damage 1 in the process. See the fractured sphere. Search. If the explorers search the chamber, they lose 1 point of supply and discover the sphere and gravity. The dust swirls in a particular pattern. It seems it reacts to the position of the fractured sphere. Studied closely, it is clear that it moves with the pulsating of the sphere. A successful logic roll tells the explorers that the sphere is projecting gravity in some way. The body. The body on the floor is Nevringa. He died when he tried to take the sphere from the pedestal. unleashing a gravity wave that threw him up in the air, crushing him as he fell down. A logic roll tells the explorer the prospector seems to have fallen from some height. The slumped figure, collapsed against the pedestal, is Bursa Levada, leader of the missing prospecting crew. She is dehydrated, wounded, and blight-ridden, barely conscious. An empathy roll is required to make contact with Levada. If successful, she indicates that she needs water. If the explorers give it to her, lose 1 point of supply. She then tells them in a raspy voice that this all started when they removed the sphere from the pedestal. 2 D6 glimmering shards. However, this is not all. A successful perception roll tells the explorers that there are more in the vault. By searching thoroughly and spending 1 point of supply, they can find 3d6 additional shards. The fractured sphere. A fractured sphere. Its surface exhibiting faint cracks, through which it emits periodic pulses of light. It is surprisingly heavy and counts as 2 rows of equipment. The sphere is the control mechanism and catalyst of the sky machine itself. Corrupted by the Blight, it activated and fell of the pedestal. Now it is in a dangerous state. As long as it is active, it will unleash gravity waves at anything that comes within 5 meters of it. However, after a gravity wave is triggered, it will be dormant for 1 round. This can be observed by noticing the cessation of its pulsing while it is dormant. If placed back on the pedestal, the sphere is deactivated and can then be removed and carried. It will no longer glow or pulsate with light. Event: Enter the Toad. The Black Toad Delver crew will make themselves known at the very worst time for the explorers. Zera Vandau and her Delvers, number of explorers -1, will emerge from the shadows, guns drawn, demanding that the explorers hand over the fractured sphere. It is up to you as a GM to set this ambush at the most appropriate moment. One suggestion is that they enter the cathedral vault just as the explorers are approaching the pedestal. Another is that they await in the gloom of the antechamber as the explorers are about to exit the ruin. Either way, Vandau will give the explorers the chance to hand over the sphere and keep whatever else they have found. She will consider this a favor and will let them know that the Black Toad remembers such things. If they refuse, Vandau's Delvers will attack. Their single purpose is getting their hands on the artifact. If they succeed with this, they will immediately retreat towards the shaft to make an exit, getting out. As the crew is returning through an already explored ruin, there is no need to make delving rolls. As a GM, just tally how much supply is needed to reach the surface. If the crew doesn't have enough supplies left, use the effect of no supplies left table to see what befalls each explorer. Roll once for each supply deficit. Aftermath. When exiting the fissure, the explorers will see 2 things. First, the beautiful light of their mother star, Jumua the First and Last. Surviving the ordeal and seeing the star in all its glory will instantly let each explorer recover 1 hope. Second, a sleek white spaceship has landed right next to the fissure. A figure in red robes and a large opaque helmet stands before it. It is Itrepo Ashur Mirmira, the Coriolite. He does not make any threats nor brandish any weapons. Instead, with a voice twisted beyond recognition by the suit's voice modulator, he will ask for the artifact. If the explorers accepted his precious offer, or make one last offer of 6,000 dirham. If they declined, if they hand over the sphere, he will graciously offer them a ride back to the outpost. If not, he will say, "Idealists, I see. Not to worry, my friends. In the end, you all have a price." And then the Coriolite walks up the ramp to Kwasa's dream and takes off. Once back in Gillen's Point, they will be thanked for their mission and Chief Calvanettes will make one last desperate plea for help. She can arrange a powerful buyer for the artifact. She claims and offers to split the revenue with the explorers 50-50. And with that, the explorer's mission is over. It is time to go home. Regardless of whether the artifact ends up in the hands of Master Mosca, the Navigators Guild, or the Coriolis, it will be intensively studied in the months to come. Refusing to give up its ancient secrets and showing only weak traces of its former powers, the conclusion can only be one. The sphere is but a part of a larger machine.